I'd like to call this special meeting of the Raton City Commission to order, please. Could we have roll call?
Sure. Mayor Sagata,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Chatterley,
Present.
Commissioner Schuster, Commissioner Giacomo,
Present.
and Commissioner Honeyfield.
Here. Y'all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So, welcome. Britt, do you want to say something before we get started, or?
The agenda is posted, and I also have slides for us, and once we get to the agenda, we'll have plenty to say. First on the agenda is a report from the municipal judge. Judge Hinton.
Good afternoon. So it says a report, but I'm actually just here to bring up some concerns that I have with the ordinance. And when Dr. Mestis brought this to my attention last week, I thought it might be a good idea, as this is the only way that I can say my concerns with any ordinance that is not considered ex parte. We are being filmed, we are being recorded, it is completely open to the public. I am violating no tenets of ethics. So one thing that I am concerned about is in our animal ordinance. There's kind of a contradiction. 90.020C says, exceeding animal possessions and limits, no person shall own more than 6 companion animals, no more of which are 4 dogs. Where 90.026 says the following shall be prohibited: possessing over 12 companion animals. So that's my concern with that, is which is it? Are they allowed 6, no more than 4 dogs, or are they allowed 12 companion animals, regardless of the number of dogs? Another concern that I have is there is no distinction in the animal ordinance for service animals as required by the Americans with Disabilities Act, Title II. Miniature horses are now considered service animals. I know that one of our livestock ordinances does prohibit miniature horses within city limits. There is no distinction there for service animals, and there is a difference between service animals and support animals, just so that everybody is aware. Another concern that I have, and it's just me I don't know how to enforce this, is when it comes to dangerous and potentially dangerous animals, having to have the specific liability insurance excluding and in addition to homeowners insurance or renters insurance in the amount of at least $100,000. I can sentence somebody to that. I don't know how to enforce that. If anybody has any kind of quote unquote legal advice, probably from the city attorney, I think that that is something that would be necessary to be discussed at an open meeting at which I could be a part of, because again, I can't be a part of anything that somebody's going to specifically talk about a case, a property, anything that may end up in my court. In the Animal Control Act, or ordinance, sorry, there is no distinction between a feral animal and a stray animal. There is a big difference between a feral animal and a stray animal. Another thing in the animal ordinances is, and I know it's kind of a hot topic, is feeding stray or feral animals. It's actually in the ordinance quite opposite. We have an ordinance that you have to feed your animals, you have to do this. There's nothing about not feeding strays, not feeding ferals. And that's kind of one of those, there's enough rodents and birds that the cats don't need you to feed them. And then there's the, I don't want to see a starving animal. And then you have, well, okay, yeah, there's dirt, there's birds and rodents to feed on. And I walk out and there are dead birds and rodents all over my yard. My only other concern that, and it doesn't have to do with any specific ordinance, it's just something that I think is very important that everybody know. There are certain elements of every single crime that comes, every single violation that comes to my court. I can't specifically say what it is. I know that certified law enforcement that has been here for a while knows that there are certain things that are in statute for traffic cases that you have to say. So I think it's very important that all of our officers, whether it's a certified law enforcement, animal control, zoning, code enforcement, whatever, I think that they need to be trained on what is necessary and required by law in order to have a finding of guilt. Because the legislature is tying our hands as far as collecting fines, collecting fees. We can't put somebody in jail for not paying fines unless we can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that somebody is just flat out saying, I'm not going to. And in the 9 months that I've been on the bench, I've had one person actually say, I don't care about my fines in court. And so that's the only way I can issue a failure to pay bench warrant. And if payment is not made on that case, that's what's going to happen there. So is there any questions?
Judge, when you were talking about the 12 companion animals, what part of the law did you cite with, or ordinance did you cite with?
Sure, it's 90.
90.02.c.
Okay, so it was 90.20C
Okay.
was the animal limits and restrictions.
Okay.
90.026 C1 is hoarding animals.
Okay. Thank you.
And then the 90.025 D1E is the dangerous, potentially dangerous with the $100,000 homeowners renters insurance edition. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Next up,
Mayor and Commission, we are going to spend about 30 minutes discussing items from the city, and then we'll turn over the remainder 90 minutes to the commission to make their discussions and planning and strategizing and so forth. So without further ado, I'm going to give a report and let's get started. Mayor and Commission, we appreciate all of you taking the time out of your busy schedule for this investment in planning, which will make all of us more effective in leading the city to a brighter future. I would like to welcome the city staff and citizens. The city of Raton has made huge progress in the last decade. 10 years ago, the city was on the brink of bankruptcy and political chaos. Thanks to City Manager Emeritus Scott Berry and the City Commission, we are now on solid footing and have built a foundation where we are able to take a longer view of where we are going. It took Mr. Berry 10 years to right the ship in very rough seas. My role over next 5 years is to point us in a new direction in calmer seas. My plan is for my successor to have smooth sailing to the shores of prosperity, success, and comfortable lives for all of our citizens. I have broken down today's administration status into 3 parts. I will cover the economy, public safety, industrial growth, and entrepreneurship. Chief of Staff Michael N. Antonucci will cover financial stability, talent acquisition, and training. Finally, Deputy City Manager Jason Phillips will address infrastructure, natural resources / energy, and parks, art, and culture. We will cover as much as we can in 30 minutes to provide a framework to work from. You will then have the remaining 90 minutes or so to discuss, plan, strategize, and organize. While that doesn't give us a lot of time this afternoon to address so many complex issues, it does give us a good starting point for moving the conversation forward. First and most important, the economy. While the city is on solid financial ground, many of our citizens are not. The economy is barely in the city's wheelhouse of duties and hardly is even mentioned in ordinances. There is a single subchapter dedicated to it. But a weak economy prevents us from accomplishing all that we'd like to do in Raton. It impacts us all. 21.6% of our residents are living under the poverty line compared to 17.6% of New Mexicans and 11.5% of citizens nationally. We are nearly twice the national average for poverty. 48.5% of our citizens under the age of 18 are living in poverty. When we wonder why our youth choose to leave, we need to look no further than this statistic. Simply put, they want out. We have to solve this problem. We need to keep our youth here with opportunities. The median household income in Raton is $40,899, which means half of the population earns below that level and half above, compared to $59,726 in New Mexico and $67,521 for the United States. Our citizens are making roughly $19,000 less than the rest of the state. An individual making less than $15,000 is living in poverty. For a family of 4, that number is $31,200. And for a family of 6, that number is $41,960. Only $51 over the poverty line. The fact of the matter is, we have 1 in 5 people in Raton living under the poverty level, and another 2 out of 5 pretty darn close. With 3 out of 5 of our citizens struggling, let me compound that with being poor is expensive. Economic writer Craig Landis explains it simply. First, poverty creates more poverty. Financial decisions forced by poverty often end up keeping the poor poor. People in poverty spend more of their income on necessities such as housing, food, healthcare, transportation, compared to mid and high income level individuals. Less expensive goods are often less economical. Poor people often buy low quality goods in small quantities, leading to constant replacement and higher costs over time. Finally, financial exclusion exacerbates poverty. People with poor access to credit often pay higher interest and higher fees for basic financial services. Now let's throw in the variable of living in a remote area. Many Ratonians are playing the game with nearly all the cards stacked against them. We'll get into a lot more of this later, but we need 3 things to turn the ship. First and foremost, we need to attract a workforce. I am speaking of increasing our workforce by 1,500 to 2,000 people over the next 5 to 10 years. In 1980, the city had 2,200 more people than it does today. We need to attract that population back. Second, we need to build housing, a lot of housing. We need to take on capital projects for housing. We cannot attract transplants without housing. We're not going to house an additional 2,000 workers with the 29 homes currently on sale on Zillow. And finally, we need to bring Raton what every thriving city in the United States has, and that is reliable internet. We must look at rural broadband with the same urgency the South looked at the Tennessee Valley Authority in the 1930s. We have taken on a number of actions already, including applying for and receiving a $100,000 grant and working with a number of internet service providers on their plans for both Raton and Colfax County. But when it comes to the economy, workforce, housing, broadband, workforce, housing, broadband, if we can fix these issues, we will point the city in a new direction. The good news is that we have a healthy economy that will turn the tide in the future, and nearly all these problems will solve themselves. But getting into the second part, my first important duty is public safety. Let me start off with our police department. Chief Garcia and his force have one of the toughest jobs in the state. They are amazing. Before I go further, I need to start out by saying we as a government and our police, we are powerless to make men and women better citizens. We are powerless to guarantee citizens will love and care for their children, keep their pets off the street, clean their yards, not engage in criminal activity, and live healthy lives. I have no doubt that our police are doing all the best that we can. Our police are here to serve and protect, and under the circumstances, they are doing a great job. Does Raton have a crime problem? Yes. Does it have a drug problem? Yes. Does it have its fair share of bad actors? Absolutely we do. Our problems are not unique, and while they are bad, we are not even the top half in crime in the state. We must always be vigilant with respect to public safety. We never get a day off from that. We're the 31st safest community out of 69 communities in the state. According to data from a variety of government and private sources, we are safer than Taos, we're safer than Trinidad, and we're even safer than Red River. Our police department's strengths include a young, energetic force, upgraded technology, and a healthy supply of equipment to rely on. Our weaknesses include high turnover, limited number of officers, and access to training. The chief and I have discussed everything from the modernization of the department, such as cameras in vehicles, to policies such as the pursuit and public policing. Our fire department has played a critical role in both the city and the county. The mission of the fire service is to save lives and protect property. When many people think of the fire department, they think of fire suppression. However, more than 80% of our emergency calls to the Raton Fire Department are requests for EMS. While 94% of all departments in the United States provide some level of EMS training, we train all of our firefighters to respond as EMS. This allows us to transport patients to regional care centers from hospitals, among other benefits. Our firefighters play a crucial role in our city, serving as first responders, community helpers, and educators. They are a talented group of brave men and women who put their lives on the line to serve and protect us. These are the men and women who bring order to some of the most chaotic circumstances that we may endure in our lives. Our fire department's strengths are in their training and equipment. Our men and women are physically fit and mentally tough. Our weaknesses are in the staffing and retention. I usually meet with Chief Burke twice a week, and our conversations cover a variety of topics, from the day's previous calls to how we could respond better and faster to emergency situations. I have my full confidence in both Chief Garcia and Chief Burke in managing our public safety issues. Our team of officers and firefighters are, bar none, some of the finest I have ever worked with. They take their job seriously, and they are professionals. The next topic is industrial growth and entrepreneurship. Raton must respond to a lack of available industrial space in our city that can accommodate business growth. We must collaborate the regional and national development corporations. In support of business relocation and expansion efforts, the city must be prepared to purchase, demolish, or build or renovate properties for industrial use. This may include building a spec facility or an industrial park. We should look at all the sections to include maintenance, manufacturing to a scalable tech startup facility for growth. We may even look at creating a generic work center so citizens have a local office to work remotely, but in the company of other professionals and entrepreneurs. The world of work is experiencing a quickening, a change in the dynamics from the model that was created after World War II to something very different today. Raton has the potential to play a significant role in the development of regional economies as we offer valuable natural resources such as agriculture and attractive to tourist destinations. According to the National Institutes of Health, we can leverage our area as a foundation for regional economic growth. We have an abundance of natural resources, land and water. Our limitation in other areas, such as production and labor, are challenging, but I know we can meet those. We have the space to grow and develop our economy where it may be cost prohibitive in an urban area, especially if we can attract entrepreneurs and industry that is heavily automated. Our location fits this plan perfectly, even though we currently lack the human capital. We not only need entrepreneurs, we need entrepreneurial education to increase our ability to exploit our strength. According to the Bureau of Labor statistics, the 5 largest protected employment sectors in 2033 are healthcare, utilities, leisure, information technology, including computer and mathematical occupations, and energy generation occupations, including manufacturing and construction. These are industries we should explore. But overall, this is good news. We have the tools and we have the resources to get things moving forward. I'd like to turn it over to our Chief of Staff, Michael Ann Antonucci, who will cover the next 3 areas.
Good afternoon, Commission. So City Manager Mestis did state that the city's financial health has made incredible strides in the last decade. To put this in better perspective, the general fund ending cash balance in 2013-2014 was slightly just above $1 million. And at the end of this fiscal year, the 2023-2024, our ending cash was $5.7 million. So in the last decade, we've seen about a 4.6% increase in our general fund reserves. This is a result of many factors, including good fiscal management, changes in tax distribution for online sales, creation of new tax location codes, such as the ones that we created for the airport and Lake Maloya Sugarite. We also have had a tremendous amount of local construction within the municipal boundaries. But unfortunately, we've also built these city reserves from salary savings due to unfilled positions and challenges that we've faced related to recruitment. In order to do more and hire more, we need to increase our income across the board, and we need more income from GRT. So these are things that we talk about a lot throughout the year as we review our financial reports. Our income from gas taxes, lodgers tax, grocery receipts tax needs to be brought up to a level where we can count on a regular stream of income. The city has done a good job on bringing in grant monies. We're currently close to about 17 million in grants and still awaiting the award on several applications that we've submitted. But the commission and the public need to understand the amount of the administrative burden that comes along with managing these multiple sources of income. So we have a variety of state and we're starting to see a lot more federal monies that we're managing. Our bandwidth is stretched pretty thin with the administrative tasks. The additional financial staff will help tremendously as we are looking at each potential grant very closely to ensure that the city can effectively plan and also execute the grants within the required timeframes. So a lot of the funding that we receive, we generally have 3 to 4 years from the time it's awarded to completion of the project. And ultimately, the goal is always to avoid any reversion of funds. Investment of city treasury is also another issue that we need to strategize on. This is something recently that our financial advisory board is talking about, hopefully developing a policy to bring to the commission. There are a number of vehicles to invest our city funds, and we need to look closely at managing our portfolio. With 5.7 million in reserves, the required 1/12 DFA reserve currently right now is about 613,000. So we're closer to probably an 8/12 in our bank account. And so that does, as we've talked the last couple of years, give us some money to invest on one-time recurring capital improvements, equipment, and things of that such, but I think we also agree that we need to invest those funds and utilize the interest potentially for operations and potentially to fund some additional positions as well. The local talent pool is limited and has been for a number of years. We've witnessed and actually been part of employees jumping from one agency to another. The city of Raton actually had 8 terminations in the month of August, and so that's a lot, and for various reasons, but this does add to the administrative burden when we have high turnover. This is not a problem that is unique to Raton. As the workforce ages and goes into retirement, there is not a population coming behind them to fill these positions. So once upon a time, our talent pool came from Raton, but now we are looking in neighboring cities and even regionally. This brings up other problems, as Mr. Mistis addressed, with housing and incentives to attract the talent that we need. The cost of talent is something that I do wish to address. Talent and recruiting talent is expensive. These are things that we talk about during the budget cycle. If we're going to compete with other municipalities such as Trinidad, Dalhart, Las Vegas, Taos, we need to remain competitive. We did give our employees a 4% increase. Those are the non-union. And then, of course, our several union contracts were renegotiated this year, and we were able to increase them considerably as well to be competitive within those departments. Until we can come up with money, the city would be well advised to rethink our approach to recruitment and compensation and reassess the values, motivations, and priorities that are reflected in our compensation practices. For example, we could include housing as part of a compensation package. Not real sure if we can do that or not, but there are some rules within the IRS. I guess we would have to look at if we do any sort of type of fringe benefits. It's generally taxable, but I think there's some innovative things that we should explore. We've even seen it within Colfax County. They've come up with some ideas to be competitive and recruit employees. Where we need to grow in a number of our departments in the city, the optimal numbers for each department, police could use 5 additional officers, fire, 6 additional firefighters and EMTs, public works, 6 additional for waste, streets, and trades, engineering, 2 additional workers, that also includes the engineering and zoning, library, 2 additional, recreation, 2 additional, and city admin, 1 additional personnel and training. Earlier this year and last year, the police department did receive a recruitment grant, and then we've also received a similar grant for fire and EMS this year. Those grants have really freed up some funds within our budget, like we purchased the 2 security cameras. And then with the fire, the thing with those grants is if we add additional, we're just kind of trying to get up to the minimum staffing levels, but if we are able to hire additional, then we would have to absorb those staff members once the grants have expired. As far as training, making our employees better trained is a critical need. There are many training requirements, especially for areas such as police and fire that require constant participation. Everyone from our clerk to our financial staff need to be kept up to date on changing laws and regulations, including the increased audit complexity. We want the best of our city, and the city deserves the best from its employees. The most cost-efficient method to achieve this is through training. Our city manager has been conducting trainings with our supervisors called the Art of Supervision, and there are plans to start a mentorship program for city employees. Mr. Mestis has also directed Deputy City Manager to become involved in the International City County Management Association. Jason Phillips will be traveling to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania later this month. To bring our city to the next level, we do need training to adhere to high standards of integrity and an assessed commitment to lifelong learning and professional development. This is for everyone from the top to the bottom.
Madam Commission, I have the areas of infrastructure, natural resources, and energy, as well as parks, arts, and culture. So beginning with infrastructure, let's start off with the bad news. The state of our infrastructure is aged. It's old, and we have not invested in it like we should have. Though we are tapping into state and federal resources with tens of millions, and in some cases hundreds of millions of dollars short of what we need. For example, repaving the entire city, we'd be looking at upwards of $200 million. We understand that this isn't feasible, so resurfacing takes a priority over reconstruction. Our location and climate exacerbate the cost. We also have weather issues as well as supply chain issues here in northern New Mexico. And even upgrading the worst and critical areas, we're looking at about $50 million in needs. We're protecting our city with a skeleton crew and limited resources. Please understand we must prioritize the most trafficked areas and the areas where life and safety are critical in working on our projects. Now let's get to the good news. We have 3 areas where I'm optimistic about solving these issues. We have an extensive maintenance program that is extending the life of everything we have. Maintenance of our public infrastructure has been foundational for our success of our water systems, power generation systems, distribution systems, and communication systems. It matters not only how much public infrastructure we replace, but keeping the condition of this infrastructure in working order. Our city bones wear out with time and use, so proper and timely maintenance must be periodically conducted. We are meeting these efforts head on and have been and continue to be successful. The more we invest in maintenance now, the less we will have to spend later. We have a strong, small, and dedicated crew. Our public works team is hardworking and dedicated to the city. Our team is the foundation of the city. They keep our streets clean, trash picked up, parks attractive, and are important to quality of life. As I have traveled around the state, county, and country, we have it good here, and a lot of that is due to the work that our public works department does to keep our physical workplace environment operating smooth, clean, and attractive. Keep in mind, we have folks doing everything from working on plumbing, HVAC systems, fixing streets, general carpentry. We are in good hands. Can we use more staff? Absolutely. But right now, we're meeting our mission. Finally, through a combination of working with both state and federal government, and the city bringing back a strong economy, I believe we can make up for a lot of our shortfalls in infrastructure. It may take a decade or so, but I'm optimistic we will get there. We really need to think of this as a journey and not a destination. The work never ends, and there are tasks to do 24/7, 365. On the natural resources and energy, of course, we'll be touching on departments that are not necessarily under our purview, but this is kind of generally citywide. When we look at our utilities and energy right now, we're dependent on out-of-state electricity. This is both good and bad. We never wanted to be dependent and strive for our own energy independence, but the good news is that our energy will be stable for the next 7 to 8 years due to our purchase power agreements. If we are going to be energy independent, we need to start planning now. We need to plan with what it looks like and what that would consist of. We have an abundance of water, though some of the infrastructure needs updating, but we need to take advantage of our water like the generations before us and plan its use wisely for future generations. The biggest risk to both of our utilities is wildfire. Wildfire mitigation must be a key component of our energy plans. In addition to improving the way we manage vegetation and repair equipment that presents a wildfire risk, we need to look at ways of reducing the risk to our city, our watershed, our transmission lines, and those that come into our community. It would be nearly impossible to defend against lightning strikes, but these other measures help reduce the threat. Our society deals with climate change and larger wildfire seasons. We must protect our natural resources and the infrastructure that supports our utilities. A cost-effective expansion of solar should also be incorporated into our strategic plans. We are also better suited in solar in northern New Mexico than for wind here in the foothills. A 140 megawatt solar farm was just completed in Los Animas County. This project will serve the equivalent of energy needs of roughly 38,000 homes. Not only is that a lot of energy, but also provided up to 250 construction jobs. The time to explore is now, and we should decide what is best for Raton before it's thrust upon us by outside forces. Parks, art, and culture. One of directly in my wheelhouse too. I'll be stretching a little bit. We have adequate parks and we have great parks. We have great turf at most parks, and that doesn't mean we're in perfect shape. We need major improvements at Romero Park. We've recently submitted a $5,000 grant application to improve Romero Park, and we are confident. Oh, $500,000. Yeah, 5,000 wouldn't go very far. And we're confident that we can make this a showcase not only for Raton but the region. We need playground modernization at all parks and upgrade recreational facilities at each park. For example, pickleball is out for bid. We have another $275,000 left to spend on our quality of life grant for the ball field complex. And we are looking to finish the MOU on Bartlett Mesa and discussing the acquisition of Buck Ridge Ranch to one day create the 5th bi-state park in the United States. In the arts department, in the area of arts, we're investing in upgrades to the Schuler Theater. There is still a lot of work to be done in restoration and protection of this national gem. Yes, I said it, national gem. We need to market it as such. We're supporting Main Street through the actions like the Gate City Music Festival, which had a huge turnout over the weekend down on 1st Street, and Sunday's Lori Morgan concert. We're looking at ways to help the Raton Arts Council Old Past Gallery to expand their reach and up their game with both performance and exhibitions. We support the Active Theater Troupe, which provides our citizens with regular performances. We support our Raton Theater for their movies and comedy events. And the Depot is part of the Arts District, and we are supporting the renovation of this jewel that we can make sure that everyone passing through on trains will visit and want to see. Culture, in the area of culture, we support the return of the Cinco de Mayo Festival to the city, and we hope that we can help expand the celebration in the future. The Raton Bloom Rally is an important event that we are exploring ways to improve. We support the Dawson Reunion and the importance of it to our national history and culture. And speaking of history, we should invest more of our history right here into our buildings. We should honor past residents such as Dr. Modrich, the Harvey Girls, the Fireballs, and other important citizens. 8% of our population are veterans, and we have a duty to upgrade and consolidate our military equipment that's been donated we have in our possession so we can honor them appropriately at the Legion Park area. And while we have a mixed bags of things going on here, I'm very optimistic about where we are going and our potential as a community. The last few decades have been hard on the city, but we as a community are resilient and strong. And as the city manager stated earlier, we're turning this ship in the right direction. To that end, I'd like to add a few things, just, ad lib. Walking into the room, I've received a text message that it looks like we are going to get the $900,000 grant agreement for South 2nd Street improvements. which will be much needed. Of that 900,000, we'll be only expending 45,000 of city funds. So, I mean, that's kind of the mission of everybody here is, as Mr. Mess has alluded to, we are in poverty. As a city, we reflect that, and I mean, you know, there's times that you want to eat steak, and sometimes bean and weenies are on the menu, and you know, that's kind of surmises our street program. There's a time to chip seal, a time to reconstruct a street. We're too small to meet all of the expectations and too large to not have any. If we were in a place more like Maxwell, you know, the bar is fairly low on what services we provide. At 6,000 people, the bar seems to be way up here, but our ability to serve that is more in the middle. You know, I mean, I think the construction of a couple pickleball courts is great, but when you look at the staggering millions of dollars in street repairs and the declining gas tax, it's tough to balance the haves and the wants and the needs of this place. We're anticipating an application for $1 million in depot renovation, of which we would have to find some matching funds in the neighborhood of $200,000. I mean, is it ever a great time to spend that kind of money on that square footage? I don't know, but we fought 30 years to get the depot, and we've got a shot in the arm to maybe do it. You know, in the future, things, you know, that I'd like to see planned, you know, we've now secured our 4th TPF application, which may be, you know, a record in the program. Maybe Clayton's up there, somewhere in the neighborhood of $4 million. If you assume our gas tax is $20,000 a month, I mean, we've got decades worth of money through the TPF program. So as we finish off the Small Bridges project and the 2nd Street project, 2 years from now, I'd like to aim at a chip seal type project, focusing on areas like Maxwell, Mesa, Vermejo, Tanaha, South First, North First. You know, there are areas that we've touched a lot of streets over the last 10 years. I mean, honestly, not, you know, to be facetious, when I got here, we were throwing dirt in potholes. That's where the bottom of the bar was. And now we've resurfaced a lot of west side streets at a time where they were saved. The fact of the matter is, street surfaces are 20-year pavement designs. I think, oh man, Grant Avenue, pretty new street. Then I realize I'm old and Grant Avenue is old. Yeah, I helped reconstruct it, but that was 2005. You know, our newest constructed roads are Roundhouse and Memorial Lane, 2010, 2012. I mean, the clock is ticking on a lot of these, and a lot of them are 50 years. And, you know, thank God they held up well. They were well constructed in the past, and older materials seem to have better life. But, you know, I don't really consider it putting a Band-Aid or a lipstick on a pig to apply slurry seal or micro seal or chip seal. Is it as pretty and rideable as hot mix asphalt? No, but I mean, our availability to get mix is limited. We had a 5-day run of hot mix in about the last year. We took advantage of every day and patched a lot of streets with it. But the reality is most street departments have a hot plant that runs regularly. We make our own out of some recycled millings and hope for the best. But, you know, I do think all in all, I got off the exit at Castle Rock near the outlet malls a couple weeks ago and ate some of the largest potholes in my life in one of the richest communities in this country. So, I mean, I think, you know, as commissioners, you hear a lot of noise. Are there things we could do better? Absolutely. You know, are there weeds tall in certain parts of town, or there's some streets that could use repaired? No doubt. But for the resources we have, and I think it's true of all the departments here, we do the best we can with what we have, and I think the best we can is, you know, pretty substantial. Thank you all.
Just a few more slides, Mayor and Commission. I'm sure all of you are familiar with this in my office. This is kind of keeping track of everything that's going on. I brought this up just to remind people that there's a lot going on in the city. A lot going on in the city. This really is, you know, just kind of the big things that are going on. There's a lot of other things that are going on beneath each one of these that is, you know, critical to our success. During our staff meeting last week, all the department heads, we got together and we talked about what we accomplished that was important in this year and what we hope to accomplish in 2025. So The top part is 2024, and we're looking at, these are the things, so the top portion is what we accomplish in 2025, and then the bottom part underneath that are kind of our hopes and desires. So, we could come back to these later when, you want to start discussing about priorities. There are other big rocks. There's the El Portel lot. What are we going to do with it? Are we going to put a park there? Are we going to put housing there? Are we going to build 747s there? What is it that we're going to do with that space? That is such a beautiful location. That is such a great place. And, we need to decide what we're going to be doing with it. The old hospital, we got brownfield money to do an assessment, and also La Mesa Park. What can we do? Do we want to acquire these properties? Do we want to do anything other than assess them? So these are other big rocks that we have to talk about. And then, of course, we need to look at these other big rocks. Of course, workforce, housing, and broadband. I said that earlier. Public safety, the casino, the film school, I-27, the potential bi-state park, the train depot renovation, the Rio Grande Bridge, education, utilities and energy, investment, healthcare, and recreation. Now, there are a lot of things going on with these issues. For example, it looks like we are going to get the money for the I-27 study and how it's going to connect here in Raton. That's going to be wonderful news. The Department of Transportation is telling us now that, the Rio Grande Bridge, which is something that has been looked at for 10 years ago, this is probably going to be the last time we're going to be able to apply for funds for at least the next 4 to 5 years to do construction. Do we want to make that a priority? Investment, interest rates have been crazy after COVID. What are we going to do with some of these things? So these are some of the things that, are very near on my radar. And so, we took up just slightly over 30 minutes here. But what I'd like to do is call the Chief of Staff and Deputy Chief Forward up here, and we could just now start discussing where we want to go, what we want to do, and what our priorities are. I'll yield the table to you, sir.
Alrighty, so, sorry. Turn it off.
Neither can I.
No, let's, I think we'll start with the commission up here, and I think we go through some of the list that you had up there and kind of get what our thoughts on that. Maybe if you go back a couple of slides here where you have them all listed down there. Sorry. Yeah, that one.
Needed that.
No, I'm good, I got it.
Yeah, you guys feel comfortable starting
Just kind of-
with Liz, kind of looking at this and seeing where we all kind of go with that. I think we all agree, workforce is a huge, huge problem here in Raton, not only Raton, the entire country. When you travel here and there, everyone's having the same thing. What can we do to improve that? What can we do to make ourselves stand out and be a place where we can bring in a workforce?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I lost a CDL driver today. My department received a 10% raise. It was generous. Keeping up with the Joneses, I don't know is possible on the scale that we're operating on. This gentleman was moving on, 18 years old, looking at becoming a lineman, a lot higher pay potential, higher ceiling. But what I find is, although we offer a great benefit package, 80% insurance, retirement, it's a tough sell on a 20 to 25-year-old person that, those things are good for them. Like, they tell me, boss, we can't eat benefits. And, I don't know what the workaround of that is. One thing that comes to mind is potential stipend for people that don't take our insurance. you know, that might, it ultimately would save the city money. A family plan, correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, Ann, is $20,000. But if we were to offer $2 an hour, that's $4,000. You know, it might save money and provide them what they're looking for, but mostly it just feels like we're kind of a training force for everybody else right now. And some of it is what Rick alluded to. It's try something new, bigger, better community, you know. They want to get out and see the world, so, you know.
Question, do you pay an increment for that CDL?
I do. A CDL driver in my department transitions from a labor to a utility one at a raise of about $3 an hour.
Do you think that's sufficient for that CDL?
No.
I mean, let's be realistic, the market says no, you're still,
I mean, I operate on a fringe with a municipally restricted CDL Class B is good enough for my department. A full-blown Class A in the real world is probably worth $6 an hour, starting more than I am. And I mean, if we could raise that to get there, I would gut myself in numbers to pay it. You know, I know it's a zero-sum game, and that's tough to work around.
but I think you're caught in a situation, you have equipment that requires that license.
It does. And I mean, that's, my long-term goal is probably to buy 25,999-pound dump trucks with mechanical brakes instead of air brakes, because the old world of having a Class B is air brakes, and, you know, that gross vehicle weight. Actually, you know, to drive a loader or any of those things, you don't have to, but I will always be struck with trash truck drivers needing a full CDL, and those are the toughest people to replace.
I guess that's what I'm kind of looking at is we haven't faced reality into what the pay levels need to be to keep folks with particular licenses. Laborers are one thing, but those special licenses, headhunters have you good for pickings.
You know, we can look at the two gentlemen in the back row. We're just training grounds for the rest of the state, rest of the country. I mean, chiefs, both chiefs, how far below are we than average?
With the state upping their pay increase this year. And with 3 guys in the academy, young men in their early 20s.
Well, they're probably talking to guys down there
Oh, I'm
already.
sure.
You're going back to what?
Right.
Well, no, and it's merciless. They recruit your employees wherever. I mean, state DOT walks across the street and tells my guys when there's an opening. I mean, right now it's loyalty that keeps them there, and you know that's only gets you so far in this world.
And to Jason's point, back in our time, benefits were a huge thing, especially if you were raising a family. In my job now, trying to hire people, they don't care about the benefits. They want to know how much money they're going to be taking home. And they want to know, I get people constantly coming in from my position, it's posted clearly on this page, 50 to 65,000. They want to start at 70 or 75,000.
Well, the landscape has changed. You know, the access to Medicare and, you know, folks having a trend of not getting married and that, I mean, it's potential for them to have those needs met without running through, you know, Presbyterian or Blue Cross Blue Shield. And, you know, and when you're talking guys making $12, $13 an hour, $15 an hour, it's about groceries. It really is. It's not great at this point.
Well, I'll just say this. In my little operation, my only requirement is they have a driver's license. I'm paying $25 an hour if they show up. And I'm probably low compared to other contractors. But
Well, I think, I mean, obviously, there's only so much we can do as a city with our budget constraints. I mean, that's always going to be, it's always going to be a struggle until our economy comes around where we have more GRT to have higher pay. But I'm thinking like as a city as a whole, that another thing that's difficult about workforce is just you have bigger projects or companies that come and look at town and they see that there's not a workforce here and they're not interested. And it has less to do with us not being a great location. We're a great location, we have great traffic flow, we have all these great things. But having enough people to staff it up is a concern. And I think that's a concern for even some of the projects in the works. So, you know, what is it that helps with that big picture all around? That's my question. And I don't have the answer.
I mean, and realistically, you know, on that sheet where Rick talked about, you know, I'd like 6 additional workers. I mean, that's a dream. I'd be happy with just filling the slots in this budget right now. I mean, we're of the size that one departure alters your ability to do the mission the next day.
When people come and look at you, they ask about schools and workforce, and then broadband.
Yeah.
It's those three.
I mean, it's not all bad news. I mean, we had a pre-con, our 30% design review on the 87 interchange. It's expected to cost upwards of $35 million. We've got a school project coming that's probably, when it's all said and done, going to cost $100 million. I mean, GRT will be there, but not in the form that's good for recurring expenses. But like my guy said, you know, I have a fleet of beautiful equipment, but I have not a body for every seat right now, and equipment doesn't do any good parts in the yard.
I know we've done other small initiatives, you know, where we've done through different partners, workforce trainings and things like that, the Skill Sharp and those programs to try to upskill the people that are here and help with those skills. But just the sheer, I mean, and every city I talk to in New Mexico is having the same problem. We're not unique in that way.
Yeah, Southern Colorado's in the same shape.
Now, on a good note, I got to go visit a doctor Friday. He was an implant, but it was one of the, we got to visit him a little bit. He was here for the hunting and fishing. Actually, the reason he knew about Raton was he had visited here as a boy with Philmont Scout Ranch. You know, but now he's kidless. What, not all his kids are grown, but him and the wife bought a house here, so it sounds like they'll be here a while. But I know when we have spaces in the shopping center and recruit for retailers, that's my sell, is if you got a manager that loves the great outdoors, he'll think he died and came to heaven, but if he's got a culture of shopping, or the family does, don't send him.
Yeah, I think it's challenging for some couples, a spouse maybe, that love the city or shopping, and this is not their, not their jam.
No.
And it's interesting talking about because the workforce demographic that I think we need the most are those younger ones, and it sounds like the motivation for them is just dollars, more so than a lot of other factors.
Well, and I mean, even the competition in this room, we graduated 40 seniors last year. You know, if 2 of them go on to be police officers, a couple end up firemen, I get my hands on one. You know, by the time you pick through who doesn't go to college, there's, it's just, we don't have strength in numbers.
Can I mention something?
Sure.
It's just with, I don't know, I take that as my demographic staying here with ages. Something that would help keep me is focusing on something to do for my children. My toddlers, I mean, there's not much. Focus on them, keep the parents happy, and stick with it.
Well, because I think we've touched on this before, was with the parks, we've successfully transitioned them into nice geriatric parks. Yeah, we need to really transition a couple of these things back to something that Lori with the grandkids is driving through here and is like, oh man, we need to stop, check this out.
So the application for Merrill Park includes self-contained half pipe for skateboarding, modular pump track that those 2 would sit on the abandoned tennis court slab, some renovation to the basketball courts, and updated playground equipment. But I tell you, the sticker shock on what playground equipment costs, I mean, it is a whole nother ballgame, and as this rep was here, we went to each of our parks, and they look a lot better from a distance than they do up close. I mean, even just to kind of get us back to where they were. Now, the great thing, you spend the money, you get quality stuff, you get 25 years out of it, and someone long after I'm probably dead and gone has this conversation in the future, but when do you bite that apple? I mean, right now, in my mind, we've got pretty healthy reserves. I'm a big fan of squirreling away money for a rainy day, but I also think we got to decide when do we slide some chips into the table and spend that, to kind of make the biggest impact for all. And that may not be parks. It may not be streets. Those two are partial to me, so I hope they are, but.
Well, statistics across the country do prove that good parks with good playground equipment does help keep families.
Well, and we're fortunate. The grass surfaces, I mean, to get to where we're at, as part of this grant application, I had to research the age of Romero Park. I don't know when Romero Park was built because that's how old we are, but we did find when the anti-aircraft gun was donated in 1959, and it was already a full park in that Raton Range article. But the cost of building out a turf park of a city block size, and that's a $4 million canvas. We just need to fix a few errors that the artist made, and we'll be in good shape.
I mean, you know that I'm just gonna say, let's go for recreation and parks, because I feel like that's why I pushed so hard for us to have some money for recreation out of the reserves, was because we need curb appeal, we need quality of life, and I know it stinks when you're giving out raises and people don't understand that that's not recurring money, so you can't really use it for salaries, which is really hard because everyone needs to make more money. But it also helps us get more people here to spend more money, to then have more recurring funds, to then have raises. So it's, to me, that, I mean, you guys know how much I care about that kind of stuff. I think it's a big deal to have people like cities where they can walk around, where they can bike around, where they can do stuff, where they can take their kids to cool parks that are different and exciting. And I mean, just basic is good, but also awesome, where the kids want to go back over and over and over, and the grandkids love it so much they want their parents to move next to grandma and grandpa, or whatever it might be. And streets too make a huge impression.
And I guess my take is, we need to have something that makes Legion and Ripley look kid-friendly. Because when 87 gets changed up, I think the majority of that traffic is going to be rerouted through downtown. That happened one time before. I can't remember if it was a semi-whack, the 64 bridge, or what it was. Anyway, that bridge was shut down and everybody got routed through town. I think it was a shock to most downtown merchants as to how much traffic was driving around us.
Now with
They
the
had two
internet,
good
social
summers.
marketing, they know where the good parks are, and that, if that's a reason, I mean, it serves two of my masters. If you stop at a park and happen to put a tank of gas in, that's a win for the street department,
Right.
so.
And our gas tax could use that. It's struggling.
But, so that's my take, is it probably needs to happen sooner than later, because 87 will happen within the next 5 years. So we might as well spruce ourselves up for
It's
when
gonna be
it
a
happens.
lot faster
Are
than
you talking
that.
about the exit 451
Yeah.
upgrade? Yeah, that's happening like
We just-
next summer.
We just got the engineering plans last week, and we were.
How many roundabouts didn't we get?
Zero. Tight diamond configuration, no roundabouts. All we really lose is the funky loop that would take you on northbound is gone. Other than that, frontage road stays intact. The bridges will be constructed one at a time where you can divert traffic and keep 87 proper open throughout construction. Pretty well thought out plan for the DOT there.
And traffic lights. There will be traffic
Yeah,
lights.
at least one, if not multiple, signalized intersections.
Okay.
So, yeah, we all agree, workforce, how do we get it? How do we keep it thinking out of the box? If you want to bring in youth, maybe, I don't know. I got a grandson that's into this Ninja Warrior stuff where you're swinging and all of that. He uses, they renovated an old Walmart into this gym. We've got an old Kmart. Why can't we acquire somebody
equipment to do something like that?
I think that, especially for these first two issues of workforce and housing, I think we probably have to dedicate an entire planning session to both of those issues. I think a lot of the ones below that, we kind of understand what the path is, but these first two are really struggling, and without workforce housing and broadband, we gotta fix those.
I think you guys are doing a great job moving the broadband thing forward. I really do. I mean, we've got, part of town is getting some broadband, then we have, and then we're trying to do some studies and have some funding to figure out how to get it to the rest of town, and that is, it seems to be a priority, and I feel like that's moving along.
And the credit really goes to, three of the four people in here, Jason, Michael Ann, and Ann Tice, and also Jaden Welch, who have been pushing that rock uphill. So, my compliments do go out to all four of them.
I do think, like you said, housing could be an entire work session conversation, which maybe it should be, because if we go down that road, that's a big road.
I guess a couple of things I had on my little list today that I'd like to see at least one of these two on the next agenda. I guess we kind of take our pick, was either the lodger's tax be applied on any and all Airbnb or short-term property rentals in town.
And we are looking at that, yes.
Well, but I mean, like sooner than later.
Right. No, we are absolutely looking at that. There's a few details we're trying to work out, but that's going to be coming in the near future.
Well, if I was a motel owner, I'd be pretty ticked off at the city's inaction on this one. It levels the playing field if nothing else, because they're competing against these Airbnbs right now.
The legislation just passed for us to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
it's,
It's
like, I
new.
want to say the last session or,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so.
But that's why I said, I mean, I don't know why the hesitation on,
I think I talked to someone, I think it was in Ruidoso area, and the hardest thing that they have is gathering the data, because there's not
where
the
the-
requirements, and so I think that's why the state legislation is helping now that we can look at that and get that. That is important.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
to me, we'd be doing the existing lodgers a favor if we put it in place. But the other one was the investment accounts on that general fund. It's not gonna bring us out of the poorhouse, but here again, that needs to happen sooner than later. So we need to come up with the percentages to, okay, Ms. Anthony, you can take this much percentage of that general fund and we invest in something a little longer term that pays a rate.
Yeah, even Municipal League and Self-Insurance Fund has opened up their investments. In the past, they were very, very conservative, and now
Yeah.
they are seeing the advantage to that. I was going to mention the same thing as we got there. Yeah, I think we need to really look into that.
There's even, I just know there's some money markets that are paying over 5%. There's a lot of different stuff out there, all different varieties.
Right. Well, and Michael Ann looked into a deal. You want to describe it with the state treasury?
Oh, so, the state treasurer's office offers a mechanism for us to invest city funds. Colfax County has already participated in that program, and so we are looking into that as well. So we will do a little bit of research on what the options are, and then we bring the policy to the commission, and the commission can ultimately decide what instruments or vehicles we want to invest in.
Will that go to the financial
Yes, our
board
committee,
first?
yeah.
Yeah, so I figure the financial board will work on that. and move
We've
that
talked
forward to the
about it.
committee.
It's just, I think it's a point now we need to act on it as a commission.
Yeah, usually the financial board would bring us something or forward.
Yeah, we need to draft the policy for consideration.
Because one of the things we had talked about was that an investment like with the state's offices, it would allow us to have the reserve requirement as an interest-bearing account. So that 1/12 is just not sitting there on the books, not making anything.
Yes, I think anything that we select, I mean, liquidity is the thing we need to look at, so.
Absolutely. We need to be able to access that and not have it locked in.
But one of the other things I guess I was toying with, and I've asked for this several times and I have not seen it yet, is the surplus property list. To kind of go back to the thing with the housing, this is where I disagree with the government getting involved in this, is it just doesn't seem like it works out like it's supposed to. And I know this is an extreme contrast between us and the Communist Chinese Party, but you see the tracks of entire towns that are unoccupied because they misshot their mark. We have a public housing authority that's what these guys are good at, but I think if the city would get serious about, we dump some of this surplus property and allow private individuals to acquire this stuff and develop it that way, that may not solve our housing problem, but it's a win-win. It helps us get rid of some property we don't have any business owning, but yet put it back into private hands where these folks obviously bought it to do something with it.
And just so you know, Commissioner, I met with an appraiser, I think it was a week ago Friday, and we're starting that process. But, you know, this is a learning process for all of us because we haven't done this in several years. Yeah. And so, you know, we're going to take a small bite out of a few properties that we've selected here in town. We're going to get appraisal, and then we're going to decide what is going to be the best way to, is it an auction? You know, do we do it under some sort of other agreement? You know, what's the best way to get rid of these properties?
The thing I'm thinking with an auction, though, is it will create a buzz. Where maybe not do it all at once, but do a few, and then the next year do a few more in 6 months or whatever. But then I think it'll get folks to looking.
And it's also not just real estate. I mean, we have cars, we have equipment, we have all kinds of stuff we need to get rid of.
Right. Well, and that's why I was looking at like this thing with Iridium that Scott Berry's involved with. If he wants one, how about if we push him 2?
They'll take it. I know they got the money there to do it.
Yeah, but I mean, one, it gets it off our books,
Right.
but 2, it creates some activity over there. Alpine might win a little, BTU wins a little, Records wins a little, but anyway, somebody else owns it. It now goes on the tax rolls again as an improved property.
This one that you're talking about will be in front of the commission the next meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of getting rid of things we own that we don't need.
Yeah.
All in favor of that.
Yeah.
I think that goes back to the 3 biggest rocks. I think he called them the old hospital in La Mesa Park with the brownfield. I think for me to say, yes, let's move forward, I'd have to see what the assessment comes back with that brownfield program before we said, yeah, let's go for this. I think that would be what I would need in order to make a decision, because I agree trying to get rid of some property is great. Our property liability insurance, you know, is going up across the state with the league, and, you know, trying to figure that out. And that may be part of that other housing conversation as well, some of that.
But one of them I'd like subbed out though, because here again, my contention's been the hospital is controlled by the state.
Yep.
They got bigger treasury than we got. La Mesa Park's privately owned, but how about the old Penny's building? Yeah. Now, I don't know if.
That's part of the brownfield.
That's part of the brownfield, yes.
Yeah.
Now, it will take care of the
State brownfield.
elimination of that, or it's just the study?
It's just the assessment.
Study, and then you go for money for all of the,
Because hasn't that Penny's
remediation.
building been assessed?
I thought we already did get
had
it.
a phase 1, but it expired.
The J.C. Penney's building to be demoed sometime after October the 1st. That's state ED. The other brownfield stuff up here is federal.
Okay,
So that one's moving along.
Yes.
Okay.
all right.
No, we've got El Portal up there, and, you know, we've talked about a lot of things there. But we gotta also keep in mind, and I did think of this Rick, this morning when we were talking, we accepted state legislative funds for that, specifically for a recreational side. And to change course after we've spent the money on that is not gonna bode well with the legislators.
Well, Jason, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe those plans can be picked up and moved anywhere in town. I mean, yes, it was for the El Portal, but the plans themselves that were paid for are still valuable and still can be used in another location.
The long story short on El Portales, I think we had requested upwards of 250,000, maybe 500. Received 25, which was actually below the threshold of what capital outlay is only supposed to begin at 50,000. So to see a 25 hit, but the elements that came out of that planning and the surveys and that are part of what we've already taken to Romero. So I think, you know, if we had to visit with Senator Campos, if, like, say we wanted to do a housing project there, I think, you know, we can sell that, you know, in a certain way that it's not a, you know, kind of an affront to them that we didn't do it. You know, the site has a lot of potential. Right now it's kind of frozen in time and weedy, and I get that, you know, we try to maintain it the best we can, but, you know, our better shot was, and this parks funding may come up from time to time again, you know, where we can have a shot at, but I mean, we're, you know, 400,000 plus, you know, I mean, if we could chase it more capital outlay, that would be probably ideal. And some of the elements of what they came up with kind of create multiple things, you know, they had a farmer's market motif with the shade structure that also functioned as a bandstand. I mean, we can piecemeal and poor boy our way to what we want if we can't find all the money. We just gotta start somewhere. But we do have a plan.
But I'm kind of like the mayor, though. To me, if we start that thing, I'd like to see it finished.
Yeah.
Not, well, we got to phase one and there was 3 phases in it.
You know, I think it was 3 years ago, we went out for RFP on ideas for a housing unit, got no response. Yeah, if we can move the money without creating a headache, or move the plans, sure, if we've got something better, but I'm like Commissioner, I'd like, you know, this is what we're great at. We're great at getting ideas and starting something, but we ain't worth a crap at finishing anything.
Yeah.
And I'd like to get something
I agree. I mean, I think
finished.
I've been working with Jason on the Romero Park thing, and there's a lot of elements we're taking from that plan that was made for El Portal. I've just been kind of giving input since I raw parks all the time, driving them crazy. So as long as we see those elements in a park that everyone can use, to me, the hardest part of it all, besides the capital outlay, which Jason I think makes a good point, is just losing faith with the public. Because we ask for input, and then nothing happens.
Well,
We ask for input and nothing happens.
I'm always Debbie Downer there, Commissioner, but when you can throw a rock from one park to another park, you've got too many parks. And my only problem with El Portal is its proximity to Ripley and Heritage. And I mean, if we wanted to throw a wicked playground structure, I mean, Ripley's huge and underutilized.
That'd be
And I mean, just to reinvent the wheel there, you know, it's just kind of making more work. You know, I mean, we already struggle to maintain the parks we have. To add to that, you know, I think if you contain it to a boundary of an existing park, you're better off. But, you know, it's not a great look to have just weeds at the El Portal. I mean, I wish somebody could do something with it.
Broadband, workforce
Right.
housing, broadband, workforce housing, broadband.
I will reiterate for the 110th time, I think we should xeriscape it and put it up for bid. Make it look nice.
I see, it sounds good if we didn't spend 45 hours hand weeding in the xeriscaping to get ready for Gate City. I mean, I was a big believer in graveled landscape until I ended up having to maintain them. And I would almost rather mow it at this point. It's
Yeah,
just,
no, gravel is
if
not
I
good.
can plant native grass seed on it, let it go to head a couple of times and seed itself and mow it, I can make it look better in the short term.
Sure.
But gravel is really tough in Raton.
But like we talked before though, Raton's founders omitted a square. That El Bertel site kind of fits the primer for a
Well,
square.
I love the plaza idea. Concrete, portal walls, those are great. I love them.
Well, I think
Big
that
fan.
Workforce housing, broadband.
Big fan of concrete.
we need to have the conversation about housing and potentially that lot, but I think what I do love what's happening is that plan got us thinking about, the El Portal plan, got us thinking about all these cool new elements that could be part of that. And so instead of spending, 100 million on a brand new park right there, our other parks, I think like you were saying, Legion and Ripley could really use an upgrade, and they can use elements of that plan. And if people see something happening, then we might have some more support.
Could I say something about workforce housing? That will come before you soon is casitas. Albuquerque just passed an ordinance for casitas. They range from 400 square feet to 750. The plans are free. They're online. We have people that are asking us now constantly about tiny homes. So you guys can think about that for some of your workforce housing.
Well,
Correct me if I'm wrong though, but I typically think of a casita as a second home on an existing property.
Yes, you could, that happens, but they're, right now, our ordinance says you have to have 864 square foot home. And a lot of people, that are faced with removing a single wide trailer, it says you have to come back with a double wide. So, could a casita or a small home fit there, a tiny home fit there? That's some of the things that's been kicked around in planning and zoning that'll come before you guys to think about. Just wanted to, so give you some time to think about it,
Well, in-law suites and those type of setups, are big in the city. What we have zoned RM1 that allows for the in-law suite are on some of the smallest lot sizes where you hit lot coverage. RM1 is kind of a myth if you're in my neighborhood. I mean, I technically have 2 lots, and that's 50 by 135 with 2 lots. I mean, I'd love to throw an in-law suite back there and make an extra $300 a month and somebody live there, but it's not really realistic in the original town site that we have zoned for it.
but kind of to George's point, to me, what would be a win-win for us is to get more proactive about a lot of these burned out and abandoned structures, to where we minimize our growth of Raton out into the outlying areas and stay close within where there are already utilities run, paved streets, curb and gutter. It's already there, to where some of that gets built back out, renewed, refreshed, that kind of thing before we go to the next. I will mention, Mr. Trio and I talked this morning, it was talked about at the last commission meeting about the change of zoning on the airport or La Mesa Park. The conclusion of that was the county wants to have their time to discuss whether they're even for the city moving or changing that zoning. I guess one of the things that I look at by changing that to R1 though, because it sits below the rise, there are no city sewer services out there. Either we have to build a lift station or everybody goes on septic tanks. We've already got that situation in that Graham subdivision. So to me, it's an environmental time bomb. Because as those septic systems start going afoul, there's not enough acreage there for somebody to put a second septic system within those building lots.
Mark,
So-
the only reason for rezoning anything that we're talking about rezoning is to clean up the map. We're cleaning up the errors that were on our old zoning map. It
Well,
was
but
before
I
we
guess
had-
the approach we're taking by using big government power instead of going back and asking the property owner, do you guys really want us to change
There's
this?
been numerous public meetings about rezoning all this stuff.
Okay, and all I'm saying is, we're starting to get pushback.
Okay.
So, just be aware, that fight's coming.
So can we go back to the other slide? I just want to bring up utilities and energy. I think, from my perspective, the way that we move forward on that is the Raton Waterworks Board discusses water future. Raton RPS Board discusses that, because that's not really our purview. I mean, I think there are, and then people can come to those meetings, voice their opinions, and then they bring it to the commission for different things. I know right now, I mean, looking forward is important. I know we're the most solar that we can have under our contract with Guzman is 1 megawatt. So we can't really, I know that projects take years, and so that could take time. But from my perspective, the commission doesn't touch RPS and Raton Waterworks in the same way, and we don't dictate what they do.
Well, they have their, like you said, they have their own
Their
boards.
process.
I think this thought, though, is more of the line of Scott approached, where there's pots of money that we have access to that they don't.
Right.
I mean, I think it's a given that they'd like to get to 1 megawatt solar.
Yeah,
storage.
yeah, no, that's a
And if
given.
we can
But
chase
like-
that for them.
Yeah.
Because really,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
the only way solar really makes sense for ratepayer relief is if it's grant funded. If RPS would be wise not to jump out and straight build it, because the cost per megawatt is, we would be going up on utility rates instead of down. But if grant funding could get us to the 1 megawatt, and it's, some of this federal money is kind of iffy with organizations like RPS being an enterprise or a component entity, that would be it, but not necessarily, I'm totally agree with not telling them what to do, but I think we know their desires is to get to that 1 megawatt, so if we can help them get to where they want to be.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
so
I was thinking over a megawatt, like
yeah.
big term plans, a big solar array or whatever it might be.
Yeah, no, that I think is in the purview of the 40-year water plan or a 20-year power
exactly.
plan, where those boards kind of handle it.
No, I agree that the funding, I'm sure that they'd be up for funding up to that megawatt, because that was the original idea
Right.
with the ARPA funds, and then everything just skyrocketed and we could only
Yeah.
build what we could build.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the original concept was we thought we could get a megawatt with the money we
Where
had.
did we end up with a third?
Yeah.
So I think if people have ideas about anything with water utility or electric utility, come to those board meetings, and there's public input at that as well. And
Just one
Look at the
quick
plans.
thing back on the housing, if, workforce housing for teachers and stuff and such a thing. We also gotta remember, we have 10 acres off of Tiger Drive too.
Yes.
That can be used,
that'd be good.
so.
I noticed when I moved here in 1987 that there were no apartments, really, very few apartments available for rent. And at that time, I was looking for inexpensive, because I did come to work for the schools at the beginning. And there's been no building of any apartments since.
And I hear the same thing, Mr. Schuster. It's not a Section 8 public housing type
Right.
of complex, but
Just-
more median income. But it's,
No,
a
I
teacher
know
moves here,
supportive.
doesn't have a husband and 2 kids, doesn't want a yard to mow or all the
Exactly.
responsibilities, but, just your basic city type,
Apartment.
50 unit apartment complex would go a long way.
Right.
A little shared barbecue area, probably no pool in Raton, but that's what we hear, is what they're looking for.
I think that is part of a bigger conversation. I know other counties and cities are looking at their own housing project versus trying to find private investment for that. And ideally, it would be private investment, coming in and doing that. But if it comes to the point where we need it for workforce, then we might look at some of the other models that are out there. I know Taos County is working on a project right now.
Well, and unfortunately, Jaden couldn't be here, Mr. Mayor, but if he was, he would have a heart for some of what Mr. Honeyfield's saying there is, while I try to protect streets and parks, he'd be all about knocking down some of these dilapidated buildings.
Oh, yeah,
I guess my only heartburn is to get them back into the street. We're gonna spend $35,000, we're gonna knock down, we're gonna have a clear lot that's worth $5,000 and no clear path to me without violating anti-donation of getting that back into private citizens' hands. The county has the tax sale, there's nothing similar. And even if we went out for sealed bids, if they came in under appraised value or we knew we had 5 times in it, is that
I think
legal?
we're looking at a public auction option, and so, I don't know, Randy Van Vleck years ago had given guidelines on how to dispose of property. I don't know if maybe Clinton would be willing to
Glenn would be happy
meet
to
with
do
us
something like
and
that,
kinda
yeah. I mean, the league's there for us.
revisit that process and what our options are.
There was a dollar value that I think Michael Ann found in the state statutes, if it was under a certain dollar amount,
25,000.
that a lot of that stuff was off the table, the requirements we had to meet. And what I was looking at with the public auction was that it would be gone, not, okay, yeah, we hit a home run with it. Because I think most of these developers that would be looking at coming in to take on something like this, if it's not fire sale, they're not gonna jump. Because I think going back to the situation you guys are talking about with apartments, one of the reasons we don't see them here, economically, they don't pencil out. By the time you develop the site, the building costs, utility expenses, this kind of thing, they can't command enough rent that our local citizenry will support. So, I mean, they can't command a $2,500 a month rent for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment like they could in Denver. You know, and that's the bottom line. Our numbers don't equal that.
Well, since, time is flying here.
Yeah.
What I think I'd like to do, Rick, here, and that maybe is, can we get an update on where we are on some of the ongoing projects?
Absolutely. Do you want me to do that now?
Sure, yeah, let's try and,
Can I interject
sure.
one other thing before we move on? And it's two very simple things. I've had several people ask me, where are we at with the Legion Park cannons? There used to be 2 Civil War cannons in that park, and they were taken down to be refurbished. And we've got a broomstick on the mountain.
I don't know who stuck the broomstick there, that wasn't us. The
It was
cannons,
novel. It does get people's
we,
attention.
Maybe we should make some wooden.
we don't discuss a lot at length, Commissioner Einfeld, about why the cannons came to not be on display, except to say that they are safely stored right now in a manner that keeps them from being stolen. But we had, a credible threat to those cannons, so they were, taken out of service. Ideally, at some point, we've talked about liking to restore them to a carriage, but when we do so, they'd best be served in the lobby of City Hall or the Raton Museum. Then I would probably not recommend them ever being displayed out again.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a story we can talk about later.
The other one, though, and it was pointed out to me the other day, and Michael Ann can probably tell us better. There is a strong possibility express aviation will not exist by the end of the year. Apparently, Robert Funk, who owns UU Bar Express, has sold that enterprise out. The parties that are buying have indicated that they were not interested in the St. James, the airport. It's something else that he funded as part of Express's overall operations. So I didn't know what that does to us as a city if we have to take over what they're doing for the airport.
I think we're coming up to the end of the term of the current FBO agreement. We've actually had other parties that have reached out to us and expressed interest, wanting to know when that would potentially go out for RFP, if that's the route that we go.
And I heard of the sale, but I'd also heard that Mr. Funk was asked if they would stay on as operators for all those entities. So I don't know.
I mean, nobody has reached out to us as the city to
When I'd heard
say
he's
that
stepping
they-
back.
Yeah, they're gonna close the St. James on the 16th.
Oh, yeah, I know that.
So we're still currently operating under the current FBO agreement.
Yeah.
Okay. But you did have some interested parties that,
We've had some people reach out to us that would like a chance to submit a proposal.
Sure. Let's go down the list.
Sure.
Actually, real quick before we do this, these are the things that, again, the top part, I can go over these and give some updates. The treasurer last year, worked very hard on our budget, being a department of one and getting everything in. Also with our payroll is that she was able to make our wages more competitive. And that was a huge accomplishment within the budget that we have. And also the acquisition and management of grants. What we're looking for in the Treasurer's Department to do this year is automation of some of our city processes, including payroll, and also security for not only City Hall, but other city facilities. And this year, we'd like to include work on property disposal, both real estate and cars and old office equipment. With the police, they've been working on bringing us up to staff, fully staffed, which they are. We acquired cameras, which I think Chief will agree with me, those have been a great deterrent in town. Cameras can't solve crimes, but boy, they could really slow down the bad stuff going on. And then also the CAD for dispatch. This year, again, it's equipment, staffing, and now it's vehicles. We have some vehicles that we need to outfit, and we need to improve our fleet. With the fire department, fleet is an ongoing project. As soon as we get a new ambulance, it's time to order a new ambulance. We've gone defibrillators, and also the dispatch has been with the police department a huge accomplishment.
Has that been in place? Is it powered up? The new dispatch?
Yes. Yes.
So it's in operation now?
Right.
And you're satisfied with the results?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Station 4, we have been looking through federal funding to build a new station, a new emergency operations center, a new dispatch, potentially even a new police station could go into that area. But right now, Station 4 is one of those shelters that was created for Hurricane, which one? Katrina. And it's a hazard. We shouldn't even be doing anything in it. So we really need to focus on modernizing and replacing Station 4. Equipment and staffing, just like all public safety, is an ongoing campaign. Public Works, we completed Sugar Eat, the Frontage Road, and did a lot of chip sealing. This year, we're going to focus on 3 bridges, getting the pickleball project to bed, and quality of life.
On the chip sealing, what's the plan to fog seal the ones that didn't get last year?
We are probably gonna end up extending that grant agreement into next spring and trying to find a different vendor, probably at a higher price.
We get a lot of questions on
What was the matter with the existing vendor?
I haven't had good communications with them. I think there may be a change of personnel, and I'm not familiar with the newer person. Pickleball scheduled to be bid opening September 17th. Quality of life is a strange arrangement. They extended our grant agreement to June of 2026, but then last week notified us that all funds must be encumbered before the end of 2024, which is bizarre. So we'll reprioritize it to make that happen, but.
Getting to the engineer, the airport fuel farm was addressed. The city's IT issues, which you can see right here, and also dealing with upgrading our phone system. And of course, the senior center projects have been closed out. We still have 2 major projects at the airport. Do you guys remember what the amounts they were talking to on that?
$2 million plus on taxiway B.
But that's just the federal grant. That's not to include the state, or does that include the state?
I think about 2.3 for taxiway B.
And then for the other project?
The
$700K.
vault project is about 700,000.
And of course, we're going to start swinging hammers at the film school and doing the renovations there. And of course, working to improve our zoning within the city. Economic development, this last year we acquired Placer, which has been a very powerful tool to tell us who's where, when, and for what projects. The Economic Development Summit, and of course obtaining the Brownfield grant.
Question,
Yes, sir.
can we get a report on the Placer, what you've got so far? Or?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Okay, great.
This next year, construction on the new Maverick gas station. Hopefully, we have a plan and we're going to move forward with whatever happens to El Portal and Tesla bringing their quick chargers into town. The library has been improving both traffic programs and collections. Those have all increased and those have all improved. Next year, what we'd like to work on is a speaker series, bringing guest speakers to Raton to talk about different topics. We look to start looking at doing some remodeling at the library and also creating the makerspace for activities. In recreation, we did fix the showers at the aquatic center. We did improvement at some parks, and the All-Star tournament was a huge accomplishment. This year, we hope to close out Bartlett Mesa, get that forward, and look at the recreation center upgrades. And there are plans for a recreation center expansion. There's a phase 2, which includes basketball courts, a walking track, and phase 3, which includes an Olympic-sized pool and a diving pool. And we're looking at, while not building it, at least getting those looked at to maybe we could start moving those plans forward as the economy improves, and we can build that as part of our overall recreation plan. And finally, the clerk has been busy archiving, doing training, and improving our forms that we have for the city. This year, we hope to complete the website. There's been a lot of changes with IPRA, so we have to change those, and also updating some of the ordinances that are out of date. Getting back to here, it's not a coincidence that there are 15 items on this list and there are 5 of you, and that divides by 3 nicely, or divides into 3 nicely. What I would like to see is members of the commission kind of talk amongst yourself and, look at what are some of the things that you may be interested in championing that's either on this list or maybe not on this list. But, public safety is something I'm sure you guys get a lot of phone calls about. And, we have a lot of organizations in this community. We don't have one on public safety, and maybe you might want to discuss if that's something that we need. I believe the casino has been moving forward with great speed. Even though it's in the hand of the pickerists, they have been keeping us on board with everything that's going. And I'm hoping that we hit a milestone by the end of this calendar year with the casino. Again, like I said, we're going to start swinging hammers at the film school. And I talked to Al Raton Media Works, and we're looking at doing a capital campaign to raise money for additional items they need and to sustain once they can get going. I-27 is coming. It looks like I'm optimistic about where funding for the Raton connection comes in this year's legislature. It hasn't been signed yet, but it seems to have gone through all the committee wickets. By State Park, we're years away from that. There's land still to be acquired and plans to be made, but we're going to be working on that to kind of expand those resources for our citizens. The depot renovation, getting that built, is we're in the genesis. We're in the early stages of that. We're not even quite crawling yet, but that is high on my list. The Rio Grande Bridge is interesting. There have been plans for years to connect Rio Grande Avenue with Memorial Lane, when I was first brought on, Scott and I walked down there and we were looking at that, and he said that Burlington Northern no longer allows at-grade crossings. And, you know, of course, we had the tragic fatality not too long ago, and I understand why. While Scott said we need to do something, he neither said, and we can't do an at-grade crossing, he never said a bridge or a tunnel, but I think the bridge is the simpler solution. And the Department of Transportation has money now, and they won't have this money available again for about 4 years. So if we're going to pull the string, we need to do that. Education is near and dear to my heart. We have been talking to New Mexico State University and Santa Fe Community College, and we need to figure out a way that we can keep students here, at least for some post-secondary and vocational options for education and training. Utilities and energies, we did discuss that earlier. We also discussed investment. Healthcare is an issue here in Raton. And while we're not a hospital and healthcare is not in our wheelhouse, I think there's an expectation that we collaborate with some medical providers, the hospital or whomever, to try and improve that situation. And finally, recreation. I don't think Raton will ever be Jackson Hole, Wyoming, but we may become Bend, Oregon. And so there's a lot of opportunities. Now, will those come naturally when the economy turns, or is that something that we need to focus and invest heavily on? And so those are really the big rocks that, you know, are on our radar.
Okay, so you're saying the hammers are gonna start swinging on the film school, I guess, and this could be for you too. To what degree are we gonna be doing in this first phase? What's the outlook there for this?
The first phase is they're going to be doing a lot of electrical work, and they're going to be doing some of the plumbing. Of course, they're going to be tearing out walls and stuff like that. But the first phase is, you know, the bones, the digestive system, the electrical,
Okay.
A lot of demolition.
a lot of demolition.
And really the foundation, because that's like the biggest problem. And I'm sure they'll probably adjust seasonally because they're going to end up starting in the winter, so they might have to
Sure.
do things that make sense to do in the wintertime first.
So does RPS have to upgrade the outside service to this?
Yes.
By how much?
With a three-phase
And
power, I don't know what the size.
average and voltage increase?
I think it's gonna be a 483 phase drop, if I remember.
I can't remember. Jaden and Jose have been.
So there's only one other drop like that in town, isn't there?
I'm not sure. My transfer station runs a multi. We've got 480.
Because the only other one I heard of was the body shop down there behind Phil Long. That was a John Lackey thing, but
Yeah, when you can run 480, it's more efficient, so everybody aims for it. But it doesn't seem to be a big deal to RPS. It's just a different transformer they order, so.
right. And they have the transformer here yet, or?
And did they have an in-stock transformer they were repurposing at RPS, or?
They have some there that they said that they could use.
Okay. I guess I was shocked last time I visited with John, that I did not know the Chinese supplied us with those too.
And not for 2 years until she ordered.
Yeah, right.
As construction's going on, is there modeling for when the doors open, what that's gonna look like? You know, business plans, education plans, or?
There is a program management plan that's in place, but we're already ahead of it. So I don't have the potential end date now. We have to probably revisit that when we do the final set of architectural plans. We should probably have a better date. So if you probably hit me in about 6 weeks, I should have a better idea for you.
Yeah, that's when I'm in Santa Fe and I run into the governor. She always asks, where are we at on our film school?
It's full steam ahead.
Yeah.
Jaden has been doing an incredible job keeping the thumb on everybody, making sure everybody's moving forward. He's been doing an amazing job.
And what was our design review last week, 50%?
50%, cool.
And they're supposed to have 95%, I think, within the next week or 2 weeks or so.
Yeah.
2 weeks,
And
yeah.
we're supposed to
jump
go
from
out to
50
bid
to
by the
90.
end of September.
We know how that goes.
And they're really 50%, not like when I used to say we were 50%, that meant we were gonna start it that week.
Yeah.
They actually have some plans already.
I guess my question to the commission is, do you really think, is there anything up there that we're missing, or have we missed something that should be obvious to us?
I just have a comment on the connecting the parks across the border and recreation, and I didn't see it on the recreation page for the recreation department, but to me, a lower hanging fruit, I mean, I think we're years away from a diving pool or whatever, not if we even need that, you know, revisiting that, but a low hanging fruit is trail work. I mean, that's something where I know potentially at Climax Canyon or Lake
I'm glad
Dorothy.
you asked that, because if I just asked for a little direction, and I'm fine with whatever, but I've kicked the can down the road on the Stinky Tunnel project a little bit because I had higher priorities. Wasn't really in the loop of project development on that. Don't have strong feelings either way. But right now we're on a clock where, you know, within the next couple of weeks, we'd be looking to pump it down, spend considerable resources just to get it in good enough shape to do an evaluation. But if that 60,000 in grant money, and in visiting with Scott, you know, envisioned that we would be bringing more than our matching funds to the table, that it would take more than that. If that's the purview of this commission, is full steam ahead on the Fragrant Passage, I will never be disobedient. But if it's not of your volition and you wanted me to try to pivot towards moving that money towards the trail system 25 foot to the east, I could probably work on that today and, you know, try to put together a product to resurface some. The trails at Roundhouse are aged out. It's asphalt doesn't like to not be driven on. Cars actually remold the surface. So when you create walking trails, we've got a lot of gaps. We spend a lot of time weed eating it, trying to crack seal it. It's a maintenance disaster, and it's not a great walking surface. We can chase that money in Trails Plus for the next 5 years and work on the tunnel, and I'm good with that. But I never really found out how this thing came about, or who we're championing and how dedicated we are to this cause. But whatever we are, I'm all in. I just need to know where we're at.
Just like you said, Jason, I think the upkeep of that is gonna,
It's gonna be a
Kill
gift
us.
that
Yeah.
we keep on giving.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if, I was under the impression we couldn't move that money.
Yeah, that's, how does Carl and Trails Plus feel about that
Carl-
project, since we found out it doesn't drain?
Carl really likes the project. He likes the story of the project. I think he'd be disappointed if we move the money or attempt to move the money. It's not impossible. It may be improbable, but I mean, up to this point, we haven't really talked much about it. We had the one conversation with him, and I mean, it's not impossible to open this passage. It's just, if we do get it to drain and we do put lights in it, is it something that you feel is a good idea to leave open to the public? Other people have talked about locking it up for us at the beginning and end of the day. I'm not really a fan of an outside agency having, you know, even access to the combination. I mean, I think if it's ours, when it was open in operation, it was open 24/7 with gates open, and, you know, let it be what it is. If we're talking about closing at certain times, then it's, you know, somebody's responsibility to close it at 7 p.m., 10 o'clock p.m. And, you know, everybody says they'll do that, but I fear the liability of what can happen in that tunnel. I don't think great things happened there before. Cameras and lights, you know, thwart a lot of that stuff, but a hooded sweatshirt undoes most of the security measures. But
Chief, you want us to open the tunnel?
Absolutely.
I think knowing all the issues that it has, I think that how it started was talking about how to get across the tracks. You know, can we do an at-grade crossing? And then Scott's like, oh, the tunnel's an idea. And then we find out that the drainage was closed off, and all these really important pieces that would cost a whole lot of money. If we can, to me, if we can maintain the relationship we have with Trails Plus and pivot or
and
away
in
from that.
fairness, 60,000 doesn't go very far. But leaving the drainage system failed inside the tunnel doesn't really sit great either. I mean, if we could restore basic drainage, light the tunnel, open it for special events during the days, weeks, the
Using
$60,000
security cameras.
project
Yeah.
may keep our trails plus, ground open, but, maybe seasonally, but I mean, if we can supplement a camera on each end, but I mean, it was a problem when I was a kid. But I don't think it's good for it to sit there with 2 feet of water in it at all times either. I think, ultimately, if this project did nothing but restore the drainage to function, it's a somewhat of a win, but
But we're hesitant on whether 60 grand will even get the drainage working.
there are a lot of variables.
And there's a required
right now.
match of what, 30?
I think we got 30 in.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking we're looking to
Right.
spend 90, and that was originally in the budget. It's, I mean, can we add a sump and just pump this water and drain it to the ditch? Maybe we just don't know what volumes we're dealing with. Is that gonna be reliable enough to keep it dry 24/7? I don't know. I mean, the lack of backstory on why it was closed, and I mean, like, when we get in there, we're finding a lot of asphalt, concrete, rubble, and I'm not sure that somebody didn't intentionally try to seal this drainage. Why? Don't know, but, until we've got a better handle, so, next week, we will try to drain it down again. I just know it filled. We had it drained on a Friday, we came back Monday, and it was the exact water level, was the same.
Are there stairways?
There are.
Is that what it is?
9 foot of stair drop to the bottom. It runs at a slight grade to the east, 9 foot stairway there, and it used to have a pipe that runs across what's now Roundhouse Road. That was,
Can it be converted to just a slope?
No.
No?
It's too steep, I think.
Too steep. Yeah, there's no way there's going to be ADA access in that tunnel. No way.
So Wendy, to put it in perspective, for every inch of rise, it's a foot out. You'd be almost to Main Street to get that many feet.
I'm afraid as we pump water out, Lake Maloya is going to be doing this.
looking at the 39 drawings, they anticipated water. I just don't know if they funneled water to it to solve a storm drainage problem somewhere else, and it's now just part of the storm drain system, or if it's a natural groundwater level. That would make more sense to me than piping water to a structure, but it has a grade and a sump, and it was specifically intended. They knew it was gonna be wet and probably stinky when they built it. Fragrant.
So would there be hurt feelings if, let's pretend in this thing, they don't allow you to reallocate and you just walked away and said, thanks for the 60, but no thanks,
It might be hard to get future trail funding, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have a good enough relationship with Carl that I could point blank ask him how that impacts our future, and if it was negative, I would do everything to avoid that, because that program is well funded going forward. And I mean, it's not just parks. The Pickers use Trail Plus to build mountain bike courses and skate parks and pump tracks, and he's a valuable ally in the fight, but we just picked kind of a weird project to get our relationship started off on. But we can trudge forward. I mean, I'll report back, see what we'll pump it down again, see where we go.
I guess my original request was underneath recreation, and, I mean, phase 2 of the aquatic center is great, looking at that, but the low-hanging fruit is resurfacing the trails at Roundhouse, extending the trail at Climax Canyon to potentially the Iridium Layer Goat Hill, and if we're gonna, whatever we do with Lake Dorothy Wildlife Area, we walk those trails. It's a very easy trail building connection to connect into Sugar Reed if they'll allow it, and we're in charge of building that trail out. There's already kind of roads, but like Trail A and Trail B, like those are simple trails, and what we learned from Terry Sullivan, I think, when he was here a while ago, is just the more miles of trails, the longer people stay and the more money they spend. I mean, and that's low-hanging fruit. Trail construction is not a huge price tag.
Well, the Friends of Climax Canyon were in last week, and I believe they were coming by this week to pick up. We crafted some waivers for the group that wants to do some trail construction to sign off on, and we had
Yeah,
one other
to the
thing for
Iridium
them.
Wire, that's what they're building, so that's already in progress.
That's great. If we can get Roundhouse resurfaced and the connection between Lake Dorothy and Sugar Eat, those little loops, that's low-hanging fruit, easy built.
We've been meaning to go out there, but it's just, we were usually overcome by events. But
Yeah.
we're gonna go out there.
Okay, in the last few minutes, anybody, something you want to really
So
bring
did
up?
that give you a direction, Jason?
Yeah, I'm gonna pump it down and try to save the relationship. We'll see if it's doable.
Can I just add a few things? With workforce, could you guys split it up into like, one's for the city, one's for economic development workforce? And then maybe, I know Michael Ann was stating increased GRT, maybe an initiative to help with increasing GRT as far as business-friendly initiatives. That was
Make us look not like New Mexico, you mean?
how you do that? Good
Yeah.
luck, but thank you.
I thought on capital outlay, they lowered the threshold.
Did they drop it now?
I think
It used to be do not request funds and below
I know on my end,
49,999.
it's to 10,000 on my end. Well, I don't know, you might check. I know on my end,
Don't worry, we always ask for more. They just gave us less.
yeah.
We will never ask for less than 50.
Is there any further direction that you feel like you need on any of these? Particular?
No, I think on our next planning meeting, I think I have a good handle on these, but, maybe we could start prioritizing some of these things. And, like, there are some things that, we're probably going to get more information on the casino, on the film school, on the Rio Grande Bridge, on education, so we'll have some more updated information.
I would say by the time of the economic summit, we'll have a good grasp of what's going on with the city.
And a reminder that this is both an economic summit and a summit of governments, that Las Animas County, Colfax County, the city of Trinidad, and the city of Raton is an opportunity for all of us to be in the same room and really start talking about what are the things we can do as a region, and if we can get some sort of critical mass at some of the things that we want to pursue regionally.
I would just add one thing, if you would. When we talk about investment, we talked about maybe 5% return on these general fund monies, but, in my mind, some of our staff, and I'm not saying giving raises to those people, we're returning 95%, not 5. With the right contracted employees or people on staff, if you have a contract grant writer that makes 100 and produces 8, I think about, we've added Jaden. Jaden brings in a water trust board at 1.2. We could get a little bit of money out of that. Now, the downside is we've got 42 open grants, 4 people that administer them, and we're drowning. So some of the, when we're asking for support staff, it's just because millions are coming in, and, everything takes forever in the government when everything's good. But when, you have bottlenecks, me, Michael Ann, Jaden, we can go out and chase a lot of dollars, but spending it's far harder than getting it. But, sometimes when you're looking at bang for the buck, I think of like Ann's contributions, Jaden, any of us that chase these dollars, we could bring in a lot better than 5%.
Yeah, no, I'm not opposed to any expansion at all, Jace. I think we do need to increase our staffing to cover the load. But at the same time too, I think it would behoove us to invest a little bit.
No, absolutely. I just say good staff should never be an expense.
Sure.
Some of us, should pay for ourselves 5 and 10 times over, and that's why we make the big bucks, as they say.
Show me those big bucks, would you?
Second Street.
No, I think, this has been good. Good to get an update on what's going on in that. And I just gotta kind of reiterate, I would sure like to finish something.
Yeah.
I would sure like to finish something. So,
Yeah,
Any other
Me
comments?
too, about 5 something.
I'm not saying that nothing ever gets finished in this town, but projects, especially our larger projects, I would sure like to
They
see.
drag on.
I'd sure like to see some, you know how long it took the multimodal.
Oh, God, no.
I don't want that. All right.
Point taken. Thank
That's
you.
it. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.